and welcome to the Bullcast Podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me always is my faithful sidekick, Cort Winsett.
Hello, how's everyone?
What? Ladies and gentlemen, you might be hearing a little bit of double today because not only do we have one Winsett, but we have two. Yes, Cort's brother is joining us today.
Yes, my brother Byron is an assistant district attorney general for the in the county of Shelby in the state of Tennessee, and he specifically handles white collar crime. He is the head of the white collar crime division down there, and by down there I mean downtown at the court or at the district attorney general's office. So we actually had him on today because we figured, financial podcast. Yeah, he handles financial crimes. He might have something that he could throw in there that would be interesting, and that way, people that are tired of hearing from us can hear a new voice. So, welcome, Byron.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll try to at least make something up.
Well, there's the opening bell, and with it, financial crimes, maybe it's the prison bell. I don't know. Do they have bells in prison?
I have no idea.
Not in the ones I've been to.
Okay.
Which is several.
Okay, so before we actually get started with the topic and go deep diving with Byron, let's go ahead and get our top 5 out of the way. Because we're dealing with financial crimes this time, white collar crimes. One of the groups that is most significantly thought of when you think of financial crimes is obviously mob families, mob bosses, and so forth. So we figured we would do our top 5 real-life mob bosses as depicted in the movies.
In the
movies. Katie, you want to give me your 5?
Okay, rapid fire. Number 1, James Whitey Bulger, Johnny Depp.
Yep.
He was Irish crime, and this was in Black Mass. Mm-hmm. Number 2, sorry, Cort, I stole it. Bill the Butcher Cutting, Gangs of New York.
I know, I love that movie.
So good.
But quite frankly, I mainly love it because, it's old New York and it's cool. But
it's awesome. It's a long one. Buckle down to see that, but it's good.
Moving on.
Number 3, Al Capone, portrayed by Robert De Niro in The Untouchables.
Yes.
Number 4, from The Irishman, Frank Sheeran, Robert De Niro. Mm-hmm. Again.
Yeah.
And then I'm repeating another one. Yeah. My 5, John Dillinger, Johnny Depp, Public Enemies.
Okay, so you've got a thing for Johnny Depp and you've got a thing for Robert De Niro. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, also mob characters are very typecast. Just saying. So let's hear your 5.
Okay, so my 5. I'm going a little bit farther afield. This is a pop culture. It is not a movie. It's a TV show. It's Narcos. It's a Netflix show. It's about Pablo Escobar.
Oh, good old
the
Escobar.
Cocaine King. Yes.
Cocaina.
And it stars the Mandalorian.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Number 4 would be Frank Lucas. That's Denzel Washington from American Gangster. Mm-hmm. Heroin, I think. So I'm doing a lot of drug guys right now. Number 3 would be Bugsy Malone with Warren Beatty starring as Bugsy. How he started basically the casino scene out in Las Vegas.
Nice.
Interesting movie. Frank Costello, which was portrayed by Jack Nicholson in The Departed. Now, I do want to give you a little bit of a caveat here. There is a real mob boss whose name, I don't know if I should say that. There's a real gentleman. He's, I'm sure, a very nice guy. In case he's still alive, I don't want him coming after me. By the name of Frank Costello. But he was more stationed in New York. And, of course, Jack Nicholson's Frank Costello character is more stationed in Boston. So a lot of people think that his character was really more based on one of the guys that you listed in your list, Whitey Bulger. But his name is Frank Costello, and there is a real Frank Costello. So I'm throwing him in the list because if you haven't seen The Departed, it's an awesome movie, and Jack Nicholson's amazing. And then finally, obviously, Tommy DeVito from Goodfellas as depicted by Joe Pesci.
Nice.
I mean, how can you not? It is awesome. And there was the top 5. Okay, so now guess what? Cort's hungry. It's time for some meat and potatoes.
Oh, Lordy. Okay, well, let's meet your brother, Cort, because obviously, Byron, I'm sorry. I mean, I have to work with this guy all the time, and so obviously he's told me you were much cooler. But, he garbled at the beginning. Tell me who you are and why you're here today.
Well, I am, as Cort mentioned, an assistant district attorney with the Shelby County District Attorney's Office. And that is the district attorney for not only Shelby County, but the 30th Judicial District. The state is divided into 31, I believe, judicial districts. And each one has an elected district attorney. I am an assistant, which all attorneys in the office are assistant district attorneys. And I am specifically the chief prosecutor of the Public Corruption and Economic Crime Unit.
Oh, fancy.
Which I can explain more about that in a bit. But generally speaking, of course, our office represents the state of Tennessee, the people as a whole in the prosecution of crimes, which means that I am an attorney, though I'm not your attorney or any other individual person's attorney. And nothing I say today can be taken or used as individual legal advice.
Very nice disclaimer.
Yes, thank you. But what I do and what the prosecutors in our office do is that police or other law enforcement agencies bring in accused crimes, alleged crimes, and we handle them in court. We prosecute them against the defense that's represented by a private attorney.
Wow. So I'm sure you have tons and tons of stories.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
How long have you been doing this?
Let's see. So I started as a criminal defense attorney in 1997 with the Shelby County Public Defender's Office. And then went through a couple of different things and eventually ended up joining our office in 2007. So I've been a prosecutor since 2007. And in 2008, I joined the unit that I'm in now. And have been doing it since then. I think I'm the longest running special unit prosecutor in the office.
Wow, you need a plaque or a badge to carry around? I mean, that's
Oh, he's got a badge. He has got an awesome badge. He won't ever let me play with it, though. So,
oh, poor Cort. Yeah. Well, so today we want to talk about financial crimes and, that term that a lot of people hear, white-collar crimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is a white-collar crime?
Yeah.
I mean, so first off, I do have to put this out there. I researched where this term came from, white collar crime. Mm-hmm. And there's sites that say 1949, but then the FBI website, which I'm going to trust the FBI website. It says it started, this term was coined in 1939. And it's with what it really means is the full range of frauds committed by business, government professionals, all of that.
Okay, so I've always thought of it in terms of, okay, if you've got blue collar workers, that's your labor force, that's your laborers, mm-hmm. blue collar, whatever. I guess their shirts were made of denim or whatever, and so that's why they're called blue collars. I don't know. Anyway, white collars is the office gents, the guys that wear the suits with the white collars and the ties, and I've always assumed that's why they call it white collar crime as opposed to just crime because it's done by people in suits, obviously.
Well, Katie has done more research on that issue than I have.
I mean, it's a huge bunch of it that's, there's different scams, destroying companies, devastating families. Today's fraud schemes are more sophisticated than ever, and the FBI has dedicated a lot of skills to try and track down these culprits and stop these scams from happening.
Okay.
I guess it was last episode or 2 episodes ago, we mentioned Ponzi schemes. Cort, you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you were big. You wanted to bring up Ponzi.
Well, it was interesting because I feel like I've heard the term Ponzi schemes, and you hear it in movies and stuff. But I'll admit to everybody, I wasn't exactly sure what a Ponzi scheme was, and so really wanted to dive in and figure out what it was. And it's a fraud. It actually goes back to Charles Ponzi, the OG, who he received large. It says it on the internet. Cort. I didn't just dub him the OG.
It means
it's the truth. Yeah. But he received large investments back in the 1920s. He would buy large quantities of discounted postage coupons and then move money around by paying the old investors with the newer investors' money. His scheme ran for over a year before it collapsed, costing investors $20 million, which in today would be about $250 million. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. But apparently his name was Charles Ponzi.
Yes.
So that's why it's called Ponzi schemes.
Yes.
But apparently he copied William F. Miller, who did this in 1899, known as the 520% Miller, because he also did a Ponzi scheme before it was a Ponzi scheme, He did before it was cool,
Oh, okay.
But he ended up deceiving people into over $1 million. So
which in today's dollars would be lots and
Lots of
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
lots of money.
I have to admit, whenever I see Ponzi written out, I think Fonzie.
Well, the Fonz is cool. Ponzi's no.
Well, obviously the Fonz is cool.
So be like Fonzie, not like Ponzi. You can
okay.
hashtag that, Cort.
So basically, when we talk about financial crimes, let's go through a list here, like all of the financial crimes that we can think of. Go now.
Fraud.
Okay.
Credit card, check. Mortgage, medical, corporate, securities, inside trading, bank fraud, insurance fraud, market manipulation, point of sale fraud, healthcare fraud. That's a lot of fraud.
Okay, so you mentioned insider trading. Who do we got? We got. Most famous recently in terms of getting busted for insider trading.
Wasn't that Miss Martha Stewart?
Miss Martha would be one, except she didn't actually go to jail for insider trading.
She went to jail for lying to the FBI
Oh.
about insider trading, although she hadn't done it.
So they were not able to prove that she actually did any insider trading?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. But she lied about, I don't know what it was, supposedly lied about something. And so it's what we call a process crime.
Oh, okay. Don't lie, kids. Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because actually, we list all these schemes and a lot of them involve the word fraud that we're calling white collar crime. But over the years, I've actually come to the conclusion that essentially what is prevented by the law and what is criminalized by the law when it comes to fraud and white collar crime and that type of thing is in fact lying. If you lie to get something you're not entitled to, that's pretty much going to be a crime. It might be a computer crime. It might be theft. It might be, money laundering, for example, which is a complicated crime that we think about. But essentially what it is hiding what you're doing with the money that you got from another crime. You're lying about where you got the money, if you have the money, what you did with the money. It's all about, essentially, we don't like it if you lie and take money by doing that.
Wow. That boils it down. And I think our parents teach us when we're kids, like, don't lie.
Right.
And really, it will save you from not committing white-collar crimes.
It's one of the 10 Commandments, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
thou shalt not.
As is, thou shalt not steal.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, somebody once put it that stealing is lying as well, because holding out something as your own when it is not is a lie.
This is my iPad. This is mine. This is now mine.
Yeah.
If he were to take my iPad right now, which he's pretending to do, and to just use it in his office, and like when you came in and you said, "Where'd you get that iPad?" and he's like, "Oh, I bought it wherever," he'd be lying.
Oh.
And I stole it. Although Byron does know where he can find me, so.
Yeah.
But wasn't it something we were talking on one of the episodes about if someone was squatting on your land,
Yes.
and then they just say that it's theirs.
Right, I've done that. I've prosecuted those
You
cases.
squatted on land and stolen it?
No, I've prosecuted people who have.
Oh.
Yes. And that is theft. Very simply, that's what the charge was in that case. And I've done more than one case like that. And at least one occasion, we've charged money laundering as well. Money laundering is usually essentially hiding what you've done with money that you stole or you got illegally, more commonly maybe by selling drugs. But
Gotcha. Is that where in movies they reference like, oh, they've sent it to Swiss bank accounts and all of that? Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we actually in the financial industry have every year we have to take a whole class that's just dedicated to recognizing, identifying, and reporting anything that we think might be money laundering. Because obviously, dealing with money as we do, anti-money laundering is a big concern of ours. Making sure so
big banks have entire departments known as the anti-money laundering department.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of that recently that's come up is the elder abuse with assets and people stealing from them. And we did an episode last week, and it was about finances and relationships and how you sometimes have these guys that'll come in, or girls, I'm not discriminating, but will come in and make someone fall in love with them and just are stealing their money, getting everything to change to their name. So they make it seem like it's not that they're stealing, but really they're manipulating them. So, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, more commonly what I see is not the love angle as much as what you might call an elder dependence angle. In other words, you have elderly people who, for whatever reason, don't have family around to support them, or whatever, and they need help, and a friend down the street, or maybe a professional caregiver will notice this and will start to help them with their life and their life needs, and get access to their checkbook, maybe even get on their bank account and do other things like that, and end up taking their $200,000 worth of life savings.
Oh, wow. Oh, so sad. But I mean, that's reality. There's real people like that every day doing this.
Yeah.
This is not, I think I looked at some statistics, and this is kind of like your average Joes that are kind of doing these things. I think the demographic was a white male with a college education, who actually is in the real estate industry of some capacity, which was crazy.
I don't know why it has to be so specific to it's white guys that are in real estate, but apparently white real estate guys, they really like their
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about the demographics of it, but it's definitely common. Actually, I think what I see is more often in people who have sort of that mid-level of life savings, maybe $200,000 to $500,000. I guess the people who have millions of dollars in some kind of life savings or investments, et cetera, are probably more sophisticated and also able to afford the assistance they need, both in financial dealings and in their day-to-day lives. Whereas those who are sort of on the line and have a significant amount of money, but not enough to afford all that extra help, they're looking for someone, and that kind of leaves them vulnerable.
So you're saying that some people are actually committing these crimes, but potentially they're doing it on accident. Is that what I'm hearing? Like it sounded like what you basically said was rich people can afford to not get prosecuted for crimes because they can afford to get help to avoid committing such crimes. But the people that are in the middle there, they're just trying to save a buck, but they may go about it the wrong way and unintentionally commit a crime.
No, I'm talking more about the people in the middle are the victims.
Oh, okay.
And so they don't have the resources to get the kind of professional help of accountants and investment advisors and those types of people, and they don't have the resources to hire someone to physically take care of them day to day. So they're looking for the lower end cost of that, or maybe a friend to help, which leaves them vulnerable because they're first of all putting their lives into one person's hands. And as anybody with accounting background knows that separation of duties is one of the best ways to control and prevent fraud.
Oh, yeah.
And so they don't have that. They have one person who has access to their physical location, to their bank account, and that type of thing. Plus, they're not necessarily hiring from the upper end of professionals. Instead, they're just looking for someone who can help them, and those people, I guess, may be more likely to be criminally minded.
Some Joe Schmo down the street could potentially just be there and take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Well, so I said Martha Stewart, but you were going to say someone else, Cort. Who were you talking about?
Honestly, I don't recall. That was like 2 minutes ago, Katie. You can't expect me
to. Well, then why don't you talk about Enron?
Okay.
I know a lot of people have heard that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I've heard about Enron. I remember when Enron happened, but understanding what all went on there is sort of, I mean...
I read a book about it.
Oh, okay.
It was extremely complex. I'm not sure that anyone really knows what exactly happened. It was a lot of transactional inflation of asset valuation.
Okay, that was a lot of words that were big. Transactional inflation of...
So when they engaged in a transaction where, Enron was doing a lot of buying, all of a sudden they started from a fairly large company and went to this like worldwide mega company. And they did that by mostly by buying, they were trading in futures on energy. Yeah. So they would say, California, you need so many gigawatts on next month. I will guarantee it to you. And they would go out and try to buy a future. You know more about that than I do. A futures contract on the energy that they would need in a month for California. So they started doing that, and then they started buying other companies that were doing that, and they started just, like any conglomerate, and they started going across like into Africa and other places like that and building and doing all this stuff. Anyway, there's thousands and millions of transactions going on. In those transactions, there's always some room for somebody to say, well, it's worth $1 million when it's really only worth 500,000. And they do that over and over and over and over again. And so transactionally, they're inflating or increasing the estimated value, the valuation of that particular transaction. And they do it over and over and over again until their books reflect a value of whatever. And it's so, way more than it's actually going to produce in revenue. And that's one of the things that with futures and those types of things, you're trying to, when you put it on the books in an accounting standpoint and account for it in your balance sheet, you're saying this asset over here, this plant in Africa, is worth this much, which is based on how much revenue it's going to generate. Well, you overestimate that, and you put it on the books as being way more than it's worth, and then people go, wow, their value is going up, and so stock investors then are willing to buy and buy that stock, and the price keeps going up because people keep buying. It's all just imaginary. There's not all that value there. And eventually it gets it's a bubble.
Yeah.
Eventually it gets so overvalued that...
So what I heard is exaggeration, which, lying.
Right.
So
lying.
it all goes
Once
back
again,
to lying.
Lying
Just
to
making
get
up
money.
numbers.
Lying to get money.
Yeah, so a couple of other kind of financial crimes out there, tax evasion. Obviously, Uncle Sam, he wants his money. So just don't mess with it.
As does the state of Tennessee.
Yes.
And we get a lot less respect than Uncle Sam.
Oh.
Which is a lot of times. I prosecute a number of sales tax cases. That's
Okay.
one of the things I spend a good bit of time on with the really very fine agents at the Tennessee Department of Revenue. And but we often see cases where one of the best pieces of proof that we have that somebody has committed sales tax fraud, which requires that you do it knowingly or intentionally, is that we get their federal tax returns and they have reported the right amount of sales on their federal tax return and only about half that on their state sales tax return.
There they go, lying again.
There they go. Lying to get money. Always the problem. Could get you thrown in jail. And
lying to get money, lying to keep money. So basically, when we talk about tax fraud, especially when we talk about sales tax fraud, you're talking about companies that obviously are required to charge sales tax and then turn that money over to the state, and they're not.
Yes, the typical sales tax fraud case involves small companies that collect the sales tax but don't turn it over to the state of Tennessee.
Oh. So not only are they charging the sales tax, but then they're not even doing what they're supposed to with it.
Right, which is not,
Mother puss bucket.
Cort, I think it goes back to what we've talked about in a lot of episodes. Everybody's driven by fear or greed. And I mean, it sounds like there's some greedy people. And obviously they need some fear that they've lied, and it's going to catch up to them.
Some people are just out there trying to make ends meet,
And that's true
Yes.
too. We see that in the sales tax cases because, again, you're talking about small companies, even sometimes just mom and pop, onesie, twosie type companies, and they are trying to make that margin, and that 9 or 10% that you're charging that customer. I mean, that's in a liquor store or in a Quick Stop or whatever. At 9 or 10% can make your margin. So you just keep it for yourself. And
by the way, for just those people that are outside Shelby County, outside the state of Tennessee, we've got extraordinary sales tax here because we do not, in the state of Tennessee, we do not have an income tax, a state income tax. So we've got a pretty high sales tax. So when Byron says 9 or 10%, yes, we actually have a 9 or 10% sales tax.
9.25%.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I kind of found bribery.
Yes.
Yeah. So, obviously this isn't when you're bribing your kids to, eat their vegetables. They'll get some chocolate afterwards or something like
for
that.
me anyway. I mean, I'll give you this and such if you'll do this for me. And my kids would look at me like I was crazy.
Oh, I remember I was babysitting these kids once, and I bribed them. I was like, if you will please just go to sleep. Next time I come and babysit, I'll bring you chocolate. It was 2 weeks later. Those kids remembered. They remembered. I'm like, what? And they were like, where's our chocolate? Thank goodness I had something in my purse. I'm like, oh, yeah, here you go.
I read somewhere that bribery is actually probably the least reported crime.
Well, that matches with my experience in that we don't have a lot of bribery cases. Now, in Tennessee, bribery is defined to have to involve a government official.
No.
So,
Okay.
and that, I guess that varies from state to state, but so that narrows your pool quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it narrows it to a pool of people who are fairly conscious of at least not getting caught if
Exactly.
but also not involving themselves in crime. They're public. Their duties are open to inspection, and so they tend to be very much more careful about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, we've handled a couple of bribery cases, and bribery is more like, it's kind of the reverse of the thing we've been talking about over and over again. It's more like giving money lying about giving money in order to get something else that you want instead of lying to
There's
get the money.
silence. That's all I think of with bribery. It's like, I'm going to give you this, so don't ever talk.
I'll give you this if you shut up.
Exactly.
Okay, so one of the things that you have here on the list, Katie, I assume this is straight off of the interwebs.
It's off the interwebs.
Okay, sedition. That's listed as a white collar crime, and sedition is basically it involves people inciting others to rebel against the government. Generally, I mean, I suppose it could be a rebellion against something else, like a corporation or whatever. But generally, when I think of sedition, I think of inciting rebellion against the government. And so I don't guess you probably, Byron, have a whole lot of experience with prosecuting sedition.
No, I think that probably would fall under our violent crimes because it's usually going to involve some, at least, violence or threat of violence.
Yeah, I would think so.
Such as at the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah,
or something
yeah,
like that.
that's kind of what I was thinking of.
I can't imagine.
So yeah, sedition on this list is probably the one that I haven't really had experience with.
Okay, I just think it's fun to say embezzlement.
You go around saying embezzlement on a
I
regular
don't know. It's like, you thought I was crazy because as soon as I saw embezzlement on here, I thought to that Flintstones movie they put out that had Halle Berry in it, and they're trying to embezzle, and they blame it all on Fred Flintstone and try and use him as the one that, he's the one stealing from the company, but really they're the ones stealing. So I know you're looking at me like I'm crazy because
Well,
you're like,
I mean,
I was too old. I didn't see the Flintstones.
I'm sorry, but it came out after such a time as I would have been interested in watching it.
Well, embezzlement actually is the meat and potatoes of my practice.
Ooh.
A large percentage of what I handle on a daily basis is what would qualify as embezzlement. Now, we don't have that legal term or crime in Tennessee anymore.
Okay.
When they passed the 1989 Criminal Reform Act, they redefined everything to fit under theft.
Gotcha.
So there's the broad definition of theft that covers embezzlement.
They took away the fun word.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
come
we still
on.
use it.
Okay, good.
To just to identify, what kind of theft it is.
Okay.
But theft is when you exercise control over the property of another without their effective consent, with intent to deprive them of that property.
And that was a textbook definition of
Yes.
theft. That was straight out of our crim law books.
I deal with it every day. Embezzlement is simply, in the old terms, would have been when you're in a position of trust and you do that. Okay. So most of my cases involve people in positions of trust, i.e. employees in some business who have the trust of their employer to deal with the funds of that business, and they just take a little for themselves or a lot.
So is this kind of like Office Space where he was taking the pennies? Isn't that what he did in Office
Yes,
Space?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I saw somewhere that it was like the average company loses more than $9 per day per employee to fraud and abuse. So it's
But I mean,
happening.
I gotta think that statistic includes stuff like an employee taking home a box of
I'm sure it does, but it's all a snowball effect. Okay, now first you take home,
paper clips.
paper clips, then you take home the snacks in the pantry. Then
yeah.
I don't know.
The snacks.
It all started with the paper clips.
Taking
Cort.
home snacks.
A lot of embezzlement starts with people thinking, man, I'm $500 short this week. And there's this pile of money sitting over here, and I'll take it and I'll just put it back next week. Well, next week comes and they can't put it back. And then the next week comes and they go, man, I'm short again. It's just, okay, $500 more, and I'll just put it back. Well, before you know it, you've stolen $150,000. And we commonly see people actually underestimate their own theft. They generally estimate a third of what they have stolen.
So they're just telling themselves that they're not in as deep as they think they are,
right?
Or not. They don't think they're in as deep as they are,
right? No. It's like even when you catch them and you say, "We have documentation that you've stolen $150,000," they go, "No, it's like 50." And no, it's like 150, and it's probably more than that. We just haven't found it all.
Did you ever see Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead? Either of you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you remember the whole petty cash? And she goes in there because it's this whole thing that her mom has left her in charge of the kids, or supposed to be the babysitter.
Mom left a babysitter in charge of the kids.
And the babysitter dies and has the money for the whole summer on her person when they drop her off at the morgue. So
Christina Applegate, she goes and gets a job with Rose.
Yes, right on top of that, Rose. I say that all the time around here.
So she takes money from the petty cash box. There's a box of petty cash that she's in charge of.
Which do companies even have petty cash boxes anymore?
Yeah.
Some do? Okay.
I haven't heard of it a lot, but I had a case several years ago, and that's what it was, petty cash. And it actually, this particular defendant was stealing not by taking the petty cash, but by using the checks that were coming in to replace the petty cash and directing those to her own account.
Yes, I used to work at a nonprofit, and we would take in large sums of cash. And it would be one of those, we'd have to have all the documentation of that money coming in. And if it was given to us off-site, it had to be records of transporting it to the location and getting it in the safe. And I mean, it was just crazy, but it would be so easy. I could see for someone to be like, oh, well, because it was fundraisers for walks and stuff like that. Oh, they just miswrote the number on there. That, really it was $5 less, and you just, slide off the table $5. So I could see someone, if they're down on their luck and they're counting large sums of money, they're just like, oh, a little bit here. I need to get something.
I had a case that involved, I've had a couple of cases like this, but I had one particular case that involved a armored car employee.
Oh.
So armored cars, first of all, I won't tell you the secret. But armored cars generally operate with a driver and what they call a hopper. Because I don't know, kind of like white collar crime, but like a hopper, because he or she hops out of the vehicle and goes and gets the cash while the driver stays in there. And we actually, in this particular case, had it on video because the company where he's going to get the cash has video of their cash room, of course. That makes sense. And you can and there are 4 bags because it was a long weekend. So he's had, 4 days of collecting cash and bagging it up. And this particular armored car employee goes in, and you can see him he's supposed to scan each bag as he puts it into his own bag to take out to the secure, to the armored car. And he goes, beep, puts that one in the bag, beep, puts that one in the bag, puts that one in the bag. Then see what I did there?
It's like, you forgot to beep.
Yeah, there were 3 beeps and 4 bags. And so, $5,000 just comes up missing on his route.
Oh, gosh.
It happened several times.
So with this, I've always wondered this. A lot of companies may give a company credit card, and it will be someone who's trusted to go and use expenses.
Yes.
So obviously, I know there's some random people that it's happened to the best of us. You accidentally grab the wrong credit card and use it. Well, then obviously you go to your HR, you go to somebody and say, I made this charge on there on accident, whatever needs to happen. But is that, I could see that be very tempting for people putting charges on there. And if your accounting isn't watching it, then...
Yes, it is quite common. And in fact, it's one of the more difficult situations because you have, first of all, in all of our cases, especially embezzlement cases, you tend to see hundreds of transactions over a period of 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they get caught. So first of all, you have a lot of data to search through, whether it's the company accounting data or the credit card reports for 4 years or whatever. So there's a lot of stuff to sift through. But you introduce questions of what level of authority did you have? And was it made explicitly clear to you what you could do with that company credit card? And if you don't have that in writing for your company, I would suggest it. And anybody out there, I would suggest that when you give an employee a company credit card, you also make them sign that says, this is what I can use it for. And I understand that if I use it for anything else, that is theft. Because I'm not allowed to use it for anything other than company expenses, whether it's for paper or paper clips or, company parties or whatever. But yes, and then even after the fact, even if you did clearly explain to that person and you have it in writing what they were suspended on and what they weren't, we tend to see people going to Office Depot and getting plenty of paper and a big screen TV. And then the next week they get some more paper, which really wasn't needed, so I'm not sure it was paper. More paper and lots of pens and a digital camera. And this company has 17 digital cameras. And they don't have a need for even one, except for maybe the company Christmas party. And then so you have to go through 4 years of credit card statements. And somebody has to sit there and look at each and every transaction and say, that is theft, that was authorized. And we also, we always err on the side of caution. We're conservative in criminal prosecutions. And if we say, you don't know, then we're not going to charge that as theft.
Yeah. So who does that, though? Is that somebody at your office that's going through all that? Or do you have somebody, like, if we're the victims of this kind of thing, do you tell us, okay, go through and mark everything that's theft?
Important question, because yes, we do that. We don't have the resources. We don't have an internal accounting, department or that type of thing. An example would be that like TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, they do have analysts who could spend time doing that type of thing. But we don't. We work a good deal with TBI, but not on the vast majority of our cases. We don't have that kind of in-house resource, and so yes, we lean on our victims. And I always feel bad about that, and it's regrettable because you look at the victim and you go, okay, they've stolen $150,000 from you. Now you're going to have to spend $10,000 of your own time going through all of this, figuring it out, highlighting it, putting it in a spreadsheet. But there's really nothing else we as a local agency can do. I specifically have to lean on them, and we do what we can to assist. But yeah, they're the ones who dig through it. Plus, they're the ones who know. Yeah. I can't look at your credit card statement and tell you if that's something legitimate or not. You've got to look through it and say, we don't have any reason to be going to Walmart. We don't actually shop there for our company. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading through all this. It's that people get away with it because they've done it for so long. Because like you said, several years. And it's like, oh, I'm getting away with this. And they think they're scot-free. And then it's like, oh, nope.
Yep.
I think about the couple of times my credit card has been compromised. And it's usually like $1 charge at a limousine company.
Right.
Like, what are you getting at a limousine company for $1? And it's like, oh, they're testing it out and just doing small amounts. And
they often just go straight to Exxon or wherever and just charge some gas to see if it's working.
Yeah. That's what we went through and told everybody, like, checking your credit card statements, because identity theft is such a huge thing. And they'll do those little charges. And especially, Cort and I were saying, if you and your spouse share a card, you may just say, oh, well, they must have done that charge.
Right.
And you don't communicate and say, wait, are you doing those charges at Starbucks? Or are you doing that charge at Target? And then bam, $700 charge somewhere. And it's like, okay, honey, did you go on a shopping spree? What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got just a little bit of time left, but we've got several different crimes that we haven't actually talked about. So I'm just going to throw them all out there, and I want to hear, Byron, how much you deal with this sort of stuff. Okay, first of all, you did mention identity theft. I assume that is something that you have to deal with on a pretty regular basis.
I deal with it fairly often, although I don't prosecute a lot of those because something I haven't mentioned yet is, for me, you've talked about what is white-collar crime. For me, for my unit, public corruption and economic crime, we have criteria for my unit. And my unit only handles cases that involve $60,000 or more worth of loss.
Gotcha. You're not dealing with the small ones.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
And most identity theft is well below that.
Okay. Forgery.
Yes, forgery is quite common. That's pretty common in embezzlement situations. Employee forges their boss's signature on the check. Just, hundreds of checks. We see that quite often. But yes, in many different ways we deal with forgery.
Do you deal with? Or, I mean, this. I always think this would be the Secret Service, but I don't know who would end up actually prosecuting it. I know they're the ones that seek it out, but counterfeit money.
We do from time to time. That is mostly a Secret Service thing because they're charged with the duty of protecting the country's currency, and of course, we don't have state currency.
Not everybody knows that. Secret Service, what do? They protect the president and then the cash.
Yes.
Very important.
Interestingly, it's almost like a side job for them because they'll be working on a case with you, and then they get called away for what's called protection detail, which may be the president or it may be a local official or whoever, and they'll be gone for 6 months. These guys, these young Secret Service agents, have a for some of them, I'm sure it's exciting for a lot of them, but it can be drudgery because they're like working one day on a case and they go, nope, tomorrow you are shipped off to Belize.
Wow.
You'll be protecting the mayor of, whatever. So, yeah.
Okay, we covered pretty much computer crimes and elder abuse and all of that stuff. This sort of thing, it could be. We do want to say it's like these types of crimes are crimes that could be committed by an individual, could be committed by a corporation, could be even committed by the mafia.
Yes,
Yeah.
and its victims
Godfather.
don't discriminate. It can
Soprano.
hit anybody.
Yeah.
But it's corporations, governments, entire economies. It's small and big scale.
Let me reemphasize what you said a moment ago, which is, or in some way you said, one of the best things you can do to help protect yourself is to keep an eye on things. And if, whether you're a small business, if you're writing checks, or if you have whatever it is, to review everything. And also on a personal level, identity theft is a good example, because if you're watching every transaction that goes through, and you're suspicious about it, then you tend to catch things. It's the people who get really victimized. We see them like, I didn't look at my checkbook for 2 years.
Which
Yep. Yeah,
That's
you
insane.
got to take ownership of it. Well, and it sounds like we all need lie detectors everywhere.
Right.
That would help a lot. Weed it out. Like get some of those like Minority Reports and stuff when you walked into the shop and it says, "Oh, hello, mister." It'd be like lie detector. Like they're lying. They're walking in lying to you. Okay, well,
that's lies, liar. There's a liar report. We need like robot voices. Come on, Katie. Just
I was thinking Jim Carrey, liar.
Right.
oh,
That's
that's fantastic. The bin is blue.
Royal.
We've already done that, but
Yes. Well, this has been awesome. The time has flown by. This has been so much fun.
Let me cover one last thing, and then we'll do this has been awesome, because I did want to point out to people, one of the things that I always like to mention is check bouncing.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Big crime.
We call that hot checks.
Yeah.
Or worthless checks is the way that the statute is titled. 3914-121, if you're interested in looking up the TCA. Sorry, I deal with this every day. And yes, and that's where you intentionally or knowingly write a check when there's not enough funds to cover it. Again, you lie by misrepresenting the fact that you have money. When you give somebody a check and you're essentially representing to them, there's money in this account. You're lying. And you're getting money by doing it. Back to our theme.
That's why a lot of places don't take checks anymore. Then.
Well, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I know people who just wouldn't think of that as a crime. They'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to go make a deposit right after this, and it'll be there to cover it. And then they just don't, and the check bounces or whatever.
Well, I mean, if it happens on an accident, then I'm sure
you're a criminal.
Lenient.
You're a criminal. Crime. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to make sure that we got that last one in there, because it always fascinates me. The first time Byron told me about checks being bounced and that they're actually prosecuting people about this, I was like, check bouncing? I know people that bounce checks.
And that's an exception to our $60,000 rule. Our unit specifically handles all of that. There's a special statutory scheme actually that is intended to give you a chance to pay it back.
Okay.
So there is in Tennessee, like we try to get a hold of you and get you to pay it and give you a chance to pay it and give you every chance we can to pay it. But if you just refuse.
See, you're trying to be nice. You're trying to be like, you made a mistake. Let's fix it.
So if you get a call about that from our office, answer the call.
Byron is like Dalton from Roadhouse. Be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Exactly. Well, this has been a lot to throw in here. I think we need to have Byron back. This has been fun.
Great.
I mean, I feel like I could
myself.
probably just I could take a vacation. People probably wouldn't
Yeah.
even.
You want to replace Cort?
Yeah.
We can do a simple quiz.
There you go.
Everybody guess who this is speaking now.
Okay, well, thanks for coming by. We do a little thing now where we're going to wrap this up and try and encapsulate in just a few words everything that we have said in this episode. And boy, there's been a lot. So, Katie, why don't we do our bullseye? Katie, what is your bullseye?
Wow. So there is a lot that is under white collar crime. Stuff I didn't even know about, like bouncing checks and all of that. But what I got from all of this is don't lie. Just don't be greedy. Don't lie.
Yes. Basically, don't lie. If you're lying because you either want to get money that is not yours or you want to try and keep money that is yours but that you owe to someone else, that is bad. So don't lie.
I think it's the whole thing, everything I need to know for life I learned in kindergarten. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat.
Yeah.
Any of that. It's
So your bullseye is don't lie. My bullseye is don't steal. Boom. Bullseyes. That's also just a side note bullseye. Apparently, don't try and explain the whole Enron fiasco because boy, that was.
Yeah, apparently there's a whole book on that.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's the closing bell. You have made it to the end of yet another, albeit a different version of the Bullcast podcast. Thank you again to Byron, my brother, for coming out with us. If you like
Your future new co-host.
Yeah, I think I'm not long for this world, ladies and gentlemen. But if you did like what you heard, please, if you have not already subscribed, feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and subscribe to the Bullcast podcast. If you'd like to find out more about me and Katie, then you can go to the Bullcast Podcast website. That's bullcastpodcast.com. There's a little bio there. You can, if you want to suggest a topic that you'd like to hear about, obviously, you can leave a comment or suggest a topic. You can also see some pictures of us on the Instagram. Yeah, that's right. We've got an Instagram handle. It's at Bullcast Podcast. And Cameron, I think, is probably going to throw some pictures up there on that Instagram of me and Katie and my brother, so you actually will be able to see what Byron looks like. He's a devilishly handsome man, if I do say so myself. And then obviously there's also Twitter. We have a Twitter handle that's at Bullcast Podcast. And then finally, Katie and I work for Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out more about our amazing team and our boss and what we do, what our company does, you can go to that website. That is picklerwealthadvisors.com. That's advisors with
I know,
not an E. Ladies and gentlemen, I have given you everything you need to go forth and be happy. So, for now, I'm Cort.
I'm Katie.
And we are out of here.